Okay. Good morning and welcome to our Wednesday, August the 23rd, 2023 Lextran Board of Directors meeting. My name is Norma Zamora and I'm serving as the interim general manager for Lextran. I'm glad to be here today and I will turn over the meeting over to our chair, Harding Dow.
Thank you, Norma. We'll call the meeting to order and call the roll. Ms. Rogers?
Here.
Mr. Schoninger?
Here.
Ms. Borges-Gonzalez?
Here.
Judge Thurston is absent. Mr. Ward?
Here.
Mr. Motley?
Here.
And Dr. Acappo?
Here.
Great, almost a full house. Is there any public comment for today? Seeing none, we will move to approval of the minutes from the July 2023 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review? And if there are any questions or edits? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Borges-Gonzalez. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Short chair's report for today. As you know, we continue our search for both a general manager and assistant general manager for Lextran. I have been in pretty frequent contact with our partners at Transdev who have been continuing their search. We've seen a number of good candidates, resumes come through. They have decided to expand the search for one more week, and so we should expect to see approved finalists from Transdev to the board sometime in the next week or so. What I'm thinking, and I'm open to board input on this, is that all finalist resumes would go to each board member. We'd welcome any questions or thoughts on those, and then a smaller subcommittee of the board, including myself, would then conduct interviews of selected finalists. We hope that, and once we get those resumes, then we'll be able to set a more formal schedule for that, but I'd certainly like to get that done before the next board meeting if we can. So does that seem like a reasonable structure to everybody? Yeah. The good news is, from Transdev's perspective, we've gotten a great response, really qualified candidates, people that they're excited about and think is a really good fit. The same goes for the assistant general manager search. They've sent me a handful of finalists, so I'll reach out to a few of you maybe this week to discuss how we want to handle next steps on that. I think that there's a smaller candidate pool for assistant general manager, so we may expedite the review and interview process on that position. We're pleased to have Ms. Zamora with us for the time being. She comes with a great deal of experience, and I've been pleased to be in some meetings with her and the Transdev team so far. So I feel very well taken care of by our partners at Transdev, but looking forward to getting someone in both of those seats in the near future.
Harding, I have two questions.
Yes.
One, do you need us today to nominate who will be the interviewees?
I don't think so.
Okay. Like, it's not a formal, it doesn't need a formal motion?
It's not. No, it's not a committee that it's sort of a standing committee. It's not something that we have official need
We have
for.
to say. And then this is to Christian, because I think you're the only one that sat on the last time we did the Attorney General, the AG interviews.
Mm-hmm.
What was our process last time?
I was trying to think of that as Harding was going through it. It's I think very similar, although I'm not sure if we did the interviews in the same way, but the basic sequence I think is about the same.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about that process or anything else? Okay. We'll move on to monthly performance reports and financials. Take it away, Fred.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to share our performance report for July. Our mission statement, we serve people in our community with mobility solutions. Jumping into the highlights, we held a job fair here at our administrative headquarters on July the 10th that resulted in 22 interviews and 8 new hires. I was an invited speaker to the Fate Alliance's Grow Smart Academy. And our staff participated in various community events, including the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce Women's Summit, the Lexington Monopoly Launch Party, Minority Business Expo, and the Teachers Environmental Academy. I have two commendations to share. The first one, I get Cheryl Dawson, who is a customer service representative, on the phone all the time, and she is always helpful and friendly. And the second one, Matt Taylor, who is a bus operator, always drives good and is friendly to all his customers. So kudos to Matt and Cheryl for their commendations. Okay, to jump into ridership, in July it was almost exactly what it was in June. We were just short of 226,000, and that was a 19% increase from last July. And we've spoken in previous meetings about how this sort of year-over-year increase that we've seen might start to slow down a little bit. Again, 19% from last July. I think as we get into the semester, specifically the spring semester, we might not see these 19, 20, 25% jumps every month. And I think that's okay. That's what we budgeted for when we went through the budget process last year. So if that happens, please don't be alarmed. I think that's sort of expected. On wheels, we were just below where we were last July by 7%. However, we did see a 2% increase since June. And then a sizable jump in productivity. And I want to spend a little bit more time talking about productivity and wheels and on-time performance in just a moment. So here we have our nearly 226,000 trips on the fixed route system, 13,500 on paratransit. Again, we were about 36,000 trips over on fixed route and about 1,000 trips under on paratransit. So at the bottom, those last two rows, trips per mile and trips per hour, those are our productivity factors, especially trips per hour. On paratransit, we see 2.22. That is a pretty strong number, especially when you consider, and you need to consider the on-time performance that dipped down to 69% from 81% last month. So I put this chart together to kind of show the relationship between those two metrics. As in paratransit, as on-time performance increases, a lot of times your productivity decreases. On the flip side, when your productivity increases, your on-time performance decreases. So on our first month that we have here, July of 21, that was the highest on-time performance and the lowest productivity that we have in this time span. Moving on into October of 2022, when our ATP dev took over, that was the highest productivity and the lowest on-time performance. So moving forward, both of those need to go up. We need to have the productivity and have the on-time performance at the same time. But that's the struggle with trying to make the service work. And we've had the labor shortages and other issues. Two things that Byron had mentioned that he has done. One is a new run bid that went into effect in August. And two, to try to schedule his operations teams during those peak periods to help on-time performance and productivity stay up. So these are two metrics that we'll continue to track, but this is one way to think. When we see this decrease in on-time performance, that's the first thing you should think. How is productivity done? Has productivity followed? Has it dropped? What's happened? And that's sort of the mindset that I have when I see the tracking of the on-time performance. Do I have any questions on this slide? All right, jumping on to safety, our preventable accidents on both systems was pretty good, a good start to the new fiscal year, especially on that injury frequency rate. Remember last year we started off the fiscal year with a pretty high metric. More reasonable this year, 4.75, and that correlates to one workers' compensation claim. And on maintenance, our miles between roll calls was 12,221. That's another strong start to the fiscal year and a perfect 55 of 55 on the preventive maintenance inspections. So that is the end of the performance report. Happy to take any questions.
Fred, I have a question on preventative maintenance inspection schedule. Who verifies that?
Chris and his staff.
Okay.
Can you repeat that one time?
Just who verifies the preventive maintenance?
So we use our FleetNet, our maintenance software, and I verify all those.
Okay. So the mechanics enter in the work and then you see it?
But we have, the mechanics will do the work, the supervisors will actually double check the work,
Okay.
make sure it's done, then they open a separate work order for post repairs and things, and then we get the work order back and then we close the work order.
Thank you.
And the system itself says when a PM is due.
Yes,
Right.
it's done 100% by mileage.
Yeah.
So whenever a vehicle comes in, we do not generate those work orders on our own. We use the system to go off mileage.
Any other questions?
Fred, the decrease in on-time performance from our year to date, the difference of the 88, well, and then last year's 92, any
On fixed route?
explanation there?
Yes. So I know, Jason, we've even talked a little bit about this month coming up with move-in, UK movements. We saw some on-time performance issues that we're continuing to monitor. I don't know that that's anything alarming. I think that might just be noise, but it's something that we'll definitely keep our eyes on. Did you notice anything last month that would?
Just, no.
It could be with
It dropped a little bit.
that Avail system upgrade might have a little bit to do with this too. But
And I know we talked about that last month, the upgrade,
Mhm.
and you mentioned some of the total ridership dip could have been due to that upgrade. But we're pretty confident now with those are our numbers.
yes.
Anything else with that upgrade that's been going on this month, or it's going well? And
That's gone well. The next step is to do our ERP upgrade, which is coming after Labor Day. Probably won't see a whole lot of change in data or anything like that. That's more of Chris and Nikki's back-end software system. So as long as they're happy, I think I'll be happy.
we all are if they are.
They'll let me know if they're not.
And then you mentioned it, but how our paratransit remains around that 68%. So although an increase, not back to our normal 80% that we saw several years ago.
We actually saw 80 last month.
Last month.
And that's why the drop back, I wanted to take a moment to explain something that I saw and
Yeah.
noticed in the pattern of the data that might help explain that. And that was the productivity numbers.
And our goal still is to get back to 80%.
Oh, go above and beyond that.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I thought our goal for paratransit was 80% and our goal for fixed was 90, but maybe I'm making those
You're making those up.
up.
90 on both.
Okay, 90 on both.
Or, I mean, I think even contractually, it's up to 95. I think above 95 is the incentive. Yeah.
Yeah, I would even say 90 is the minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank you for taking the time to explain
Sure.
that as well.
Any other questions?
And then I also just noticed the discourtesies are going down for fixed, for our paratransit.
Mm-hmm. The last year-to-date number, remember that was not, we were sort of in that transition period, so those numbers got a little bit, we had a lot of complaints over
Yeah.
that period of time. So comparing those two this year to last year is going to be a little bit of a challenge.
Fred, what's the actual number of people, the number of complaints that said discourtesy for paratransit?
I can hop on the computer and look that up specifically.
It's not that big of a number, right?
No, it's
There's
not.
not that many comments, it's just the way they do it per 100,000 miles, it makes it look like a bigger number. That might be helpful to add to this, is
Okay.
whole number, to what the number is, you know?
So you think we should go to raw numbers, back to raw numbers instead of having the rate? Okay.
Well, have both,
Both?
yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Fred.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Fred. We go into the balance sheet. I always tell you every year that July is my favorite month because there's only 1 month of the fiscal year. We started out strong with our operating cash. Our accounts receivable there is state money, and then our work in process, as you know, is our grant funding. Next month you'll see that increase because we just received 7 new CNG buses. So you'll see that in there for next month. Everything else is pretty ordinary on the balance sheet, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All the buses are just coming in at the same time?
We had 7 to come in at the same time.
And are those, I recall, replacing diesel vehicles?
7
that will
diesels,
be-
yes.
Okay. And what's our plan for the 7 diesels?
The 7 diesels, part of those are those the Volkswagen?
No, these are those right.
These will be disposed of. We'll usually put them on the government site, surplus site, and sell them. They usually don't bring very much. They're valuable to us, but you have to be a transit agency, but when sometimes they're close to, I think there's some 2004s and some 2007s in there, so they're pretty much past their useful life.
And if they were the Volkswagen money, is there a different disposition?
There is. The Volkswagen buses, there must be a hole put in the engine block, and the frame has to be cut. That'd be totally destroyed.
So they are off the market.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So we have an arrangement with scrap to scrap those buses. So, and we have to provide all that documentation to the state.
I remember at one time, this is, I think pre-pandemic, we had a number of buses that were coming up on the end of their useful life. Are we better positioned now?
We are. Those were the 2007 buses. In 2007, there were 17 buses, all bought in that same year because of money availability. So we've been trying to replace those so that we don't have the big lump all due at the same time.
And just to confirm, because I know we've talked about it many, many times, the compressed natural gas and the electric are low, no emissions.
Yes. Yes. And that's the grant that that we've got these 7 CNGs. That was a lower no emissions grant.
Nikki, where are we with the Proterra buses, the original?
We have a meeting. They're trying to set a date with FTA is setting the date. Proterra has announced Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So Proterra has, FTA is trying to schedule a meeting, trying to get dates together of some of the transit agencies across the country that have bought the Proterra buses. So we're just trying to get that date together. But FTA did reach out to us. So.
I know that Proterra, despite the issues that we've had with the buses, has often sent maintenance people to us. Does their bankruptcy filing affect that?
At this point, we don't know.
Okay.
We're not exactly sure what it will affect. As you know, the charger was fixed, and then like a few days later, a truck ran into it, so the charger's still out of commission. So at this point, we just don't know right now. So we'll look at the statement of revenue and expenses. Property taxes, we never receive any property taxes in July. Everything we receive goes back to June, so that's nothing unusual. The passenger revenue is looking good. We're a little bit over budget. That one's always hard to guess 6 months in advance of where we think we'll be. So federal funds, that's timing issue. That's timing of when the grants come in, so there's no need to worry about federal or state. That's all timing. We did receive our $260,000 for our advertising contract as usual, and I mentioned last month we ended up with quite a bit more than that at the end of June. So anything left over at this end of the year that is over that 260 we'll receive, but we won't know what that is until June. The other revenue there is our UK, our fuel taxes, things like that. All of our expenses at this point are under budget, except paratransit, which is a little bit over, but we're very pleased at this point in the fiscal year. We continue to watch expenses every day. The monthly average diesel cost right now is $2.55. We budgeted $4.25, so we feel good about that. And our CNG diesel gallon equivalent is $1.77, so we're always happy to see that. But I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Arnie, I'd like to just make a statement, and I asked Nikki for some information on paratransit and other transit agencies about our size, and that's something that the Finance Committee will take a look at. I think everybody knows that, we're anticipating, pretty large increase in that area.
Yes.
And we don't want that to cause us problems down the road. So
Absolutely.
just want you to know that we've got our eye on it.
Great. Okay. This is a,
To the question about complaints on paratransit, and I moved
What was that?
to discourage the complaints on paratransit last month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred.
Did I read somewhere that maybe there was only like 4 comments total or something?
There was more than that. We had 8.
Okay.
Useful context, though.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move into our agenda of action items. We're going to split the job up a little bit this month, so I'm going to lead off, and then I think Fred and Nikki will be leading discussions of resolutions B through E. But we'll start with a resolution to appoint members to the Finance and Pension Committees. This is something we do on an annual basis. The Finance Committee has either the board or a designee and 2 other voting members. In this year, as with last year, I have designated Mr. Ward and asked Ms. Rogers and Dr. Acampo to reprise their roles on the Finance Committee. For the Pension Committee, I have again nominated Mr. Schoninger for that role. Any questions or comments about this, or a motion to approve these appointments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Motley. Is there a second? Lady, why don't you second, since you're the only person who's not on one of these committees?
I was about to get off mute.
Okay.
I'm second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
And Nikki will be presenting the next resolution.
Okay, this resolution is to approve the public records custodian. The bylaws for the Lextran Board of Directors establishes that there will be a public records custodian. The resolution 2021-06 was adopted in the board by the board on April 2021 and named Jill Barnett as that public record custodian. Since Jill is no longer with us, we would like to do this resolution to name Tazaya Bakara, the risk management specialist, as the official custodian of public records.
Nikki, is the expectation that once a permanent general manager is found, that we would then make a new resolution to appoint that person to our public records, or is the intent for Tazaya to continue in this role?
The intent would be for him to continue in this role. Jill inherited that position from when she was Director of Community Affairs and kind of kept it through her role as AGM and GM.
Okay.
But she had pointed out to us that it probably should not be someone that's a contracted employee. It should be someone that's an actual Lextran employee.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we've picked Tazaya.
Got it.
Can I ask a question? Y'all don't judge me, but what does that entail again?
Open records, all of our records.
They respond to the open records
Are subject to open records. We have to put something on our website that says if you want to put in an open records request, here's the process. So we will put that on our website. It will give his information to contact him. Then when that public record comes in, he sends it to the appropriate department and makes sure that they respond, and there's a certain amount of days, things like that. Gets the legal counsel involved if necessary, and just make sure that it all gets done in time.
Just making sure it was what I thought it was.
Yes.
Nikki, the resolution also lists protecting public records from damage and disorganization. So is there like an IT component to this position, or is that just boilerplate KRS language?
It would be not only hard copies, but also electronic copies of everything to be backed up, because we save those forever.
Is forever?
Forever.
Okay.
Forever.
And this is super weedy, but do we do that on site or remotely?
On site.
Okay.
Both. Oh, both. Good to have IT here. Both.
Yes. Backups of backups. Always good. All right. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution 2023-11?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Scheininger. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Motley. All in favor? Aye. All right. Motion approved.
Thank you, Nikki. And Brett will present the next 3 resolutions.
Okay, so the first resolution is 23-12 for bus stop enhancements. I have for you much more information than is just on the resolution to help explain. We promised a ramp update, so this is all sort of rolled into one. Talk about where the ramp program is, where it's going to go, and then exactly what we're talking about with the resolution. So first, just a reminder, our ramp program, rider amenities at many places. So far, we've invested more than $500,000 and completed about 57 stops in our first 2 phases. Our ramp phase 3, a shortlisted 24 stops. In the resolution, you'll find that we have moved forward on 13 of those 24. And something else that's rolled into the ramp update that I wanted to share is the solar lighting project. We have gone through the National Environmental Policy Act review process and received a categorical exclusion on that as well. So perhaps after this phase of ramp is completed, we'll turn our attention to those the solar light project. So the map here is both phases, well, 1, 2, and 3, and the green dots are phases 1 and 2 that have been completed, and then the yellow is phase 3 that we're talking about in the resolution. There's a second map here that's got those kind of standing out on their own so you can see specifically where those stops are. We have enhancements on 9 different routes and in 6 different council districts. The new shelter installations have a combined average weekday boardings of 17.3. If you remember, our threshold is 25, so that goes to show that we've gone above and beyond what we have established our threshold as, and that was part of those board conversations when Mr. Grisman was here to be more aggressive on where we put our shelters.
Hey, Fred.
Yes.
I should have asked you this ahead of time.
Sure.
Do we have any data on the stops that we did enhance, if that increased the number of boardings?
I can try to find some information on that, but it might be so hard to really tell that there's a cause and effect
Okay.
there. I can take a look and see if I can come up with something that's specific. If you look at the shelter installations along with the replacements, the average weekday boardings was about 23. And I want, in terms of transparency, to share that this scope of work excludes design work, permitting, purchase of the amenities, and those sorts of things. This is labor and installation at these stops. So I have a small slide on each one. We'll go through it quickly. This is North Limestone and New Circle. So this is near the Goodwill on Route 7. Shelter replacement and some concrete work, connection, and an area for a trash can. If you all have any questions as I go through this, please feel free to stop me. Al Sheba Backyard Burgers. Backyard Burgers is no longer in business there, but this is, that naming convention sort of fell through, so this is across the street from Meyer in Hamburg on Route 10. There is a sidewalk gap for accessibility that we will take care of, and also replace the shelter.
What is at the bottom, the difference between boardings and alightments?
Boardings is the number of people that get on the bus there, and the lightings are the number of people that get off the bus there. So on stops with high boardings, we want to make sure that we have a shelter because people are waiting. And for lightings, that's where people are getting off, so we want to have the boarding pad, so if there's a mobility device, there's a hard surface for them to get off the bus. Another one in Hamburg on Route 10, this is Sir Barton Pavilion Way, a book bench installation that, as you can see, is not connected to the sidewalk, so we will take care of that. Pour boarding pad, do some curbing work, and make sure that that's a nice accessible stop.
So who installed the book bench?
I think that was a partnership with the city. I'm not sure exactly who it was that actually did the work.
Okay.
This one is BCTC at Opportunity Way. That's Route 12 Leestown Road at BCTC. And the concrete work is already done. All we need to do is install a bench. This is Life Lane on Route 1 Woodhill. This is near the Senior Center. This is a safety concern that we've had brought up because there's a lot of folks who use this who do have a mobility device. So this is extending that boarding pad to the curb to make sure that there's enough ample room for our ramp to get down and for people to safely board and alight the bus.
And you just know that because it's by the senior center? Or how do you know that it's people that?
This one I think came through safety committee. Is that right, John?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So this is Antique Drive, also on Route 12 Leestown Road. This is near the Meadowthorpe Landing Senior Living Facility. We will have to move this stop just a little bit because of the grade issues there, and then install a bench and a trash can.
And that's interesting. This is the only one where there's more, so far, where there's more alightments than there are boardings.
Yeah, inbound versus outbound makes a difference on that too. But
Side of the street sometimes.
And this is the new affordable housing.
this is the one near Meadowthorpe.
Yep.
Newtown at Loudon, this is the Fayette County Health Department. So we need to do a demo of where the bench is there. There's a little step up. We'll flatten all that out and install a new shelter.
There's a nice shelter across the street from that.
Yes. This is Route 6 North Broadway near the North Side Library on Russell Cave. This one, I think, really, you can see even in the picture that replacement needs to be done. We'll also do some concrete work there, paving area for a trash can. Another one, this I think is the most expensive one in the set. This is near the Housing Authority on New Circle Road. Need to do some grading, make sure this pad is level, do some more connections. You can't, if you imagine you're trying to get into this in a wheelchair, you have to come out into the street and around to get into the shelter. So we need to rework that for accessibility. This one, North Broadway on Route 6, is just to place another book bench. I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of additional concrete work there. This is a rendering of what that'll look like when we're done. We'll make sure that there's enough space for scooters, wheelchairs, all the mobility devices. And Nicholasville Road at the summit, concrete work is already done. It was done as part of the development. We just need to install the shelter. And Nicholasville, near the corner of Alumni Drive, this shelter is in need of replacement. And then I think we're also going to extend that boarding pad onto the curb as well. And New Circle Road, this is the Kroger and Bryan Station, so Route 7 and Route 17. We're going to do some curb work, expand the boarding pad, and then replace the shelter. Oh, and that's the last one. Any questions about any of those?
I have a question because I think there's 2 on the book benches. Who buys the book bench?
The book bench was there's like a contest that was done a few years ago, and they've been placed around the city, and we have even one out front here. As far as I know, that contest is not going to come back around again.
But the one we're placing a book bench there, is that at someone?
It was donated.
It was
Yes.
donated?
Yeah, by a council member that I believe is no longer in office.
He's out, James Brown, right? He's at large now. Was it his office that did it?
Is it his district?
I think so.
Okay. It's
Well, we can follow that.
Well, and the reason I ask is some of them aren't aging well. They're like very diluted. And so is that a good use of putting a book bench back? I mean, I guess it's donated, but
Yeah.
they're almost completely muted. And we'll
We
have to
can
replace them soon.
Reach out to see what the maintenance plans are for those. We will do that.
I pretty much guarantee there isn't one. Because they're not, it's not even a good bench. Let's be clear. Like, it's not a good seating experience. So I understand, this is, I think, something that every nonprofit has to deal with at some point, is sometimes it's good to say no to donations. And this one may have been agreed to years ago, I don't know. But I think where we can, installing our own accessible seating is probably the smart move, which
I
I'm
think
sure
it
is
was a
very good.
partnership with Lexarts. Were you there when they
Yeah,
did
that
the
sounds right.
book?
Can I ask a question? How often, and again, I probably should know, but how often are we getting feedback from riders? Like, other than our commendation platform, are we surveying? Because I remember what I'm thinking about is the branding project, the rebrand that we did, and like the focus, well, I don't know if it was focus group, but I know that we had a company that was at certain stops and at the downtown location and talking to riders and getting feedback. Because George's question triggered me, because I wondered, where do we get the data? Where can we capture that data that says, okay, this is a good thing, riders appreciate it. So how often are we doing that, outside of that rebrand that we did?
The last survey that we did was April of '21. That was part of our comprehensive operations analysis. However, Emily and myself were plugged into every public, the MPO has public events, we have public events. We're out in the community getting that feedback face to face. But the last big sort of survey we did was 2021.
It would be interesting to just see if people are asked, those questions directly, what the feedback might be. I do want to say, because I'm not sure I'll have another opportunity, thank you for this process. And I know, Rick talked about it a lot. a lot of folks on the board that really appreciated what ramp has meant. And I think second to certainly, the actual operation of our buses on the road, getting folks from A to B, our stops are, the most visible reflection of Lextran and how we serve our riders. And I remember the early conversation was exactly what you mentioned earlier, which is stuff like people in wheelchairs who need accessibility, people who are at the bus stop standing in mud. So I appreciate, number one, us having the funds available to draw down to be able to do this project, but I know, Fred, you've been leading this process and making sure that we push ahead. I know, was it 54?
57.
Was the goal? 57 was the goal?
So this will add another 13, and we're not done. I mean, we're not going to stop here. But once this is finished, and once the solar project is finished, we're getting pretty close to $1 million of investment.
To me, that's something special. I think it represents us living up to that mission of serving people. So just thank you to the team. I think it's a big deal.
Great. Thank you, Christian. Any other questions about the resolution? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you. Okay,
Continuing forward with our fleet facilities.
The next two resolutions, 2023-13 and 2023-14, are both related to our CNG facilities and fleet project. So to give you a little background on that, this was the competitive low and no emissions grant that we won back in fiscal year 22 that included the purchase of 40-foot Gillick CNG buses. That was resolution 2022-29. Those buses are all 7 here, I do believe. So they're not in service yet, but we've received those recently. Also included in that project was maintenance facility safety enhancements, CNG fueling infrastructure, and additional financial support for onboard vehicle technology, utility work, and workforce development. The two resolutions that we are presenting today, one is for maintenance facility safety enhancements, and one is for the CNG fueling infrastructure components. The last time that we updated you on this project, we were awaiting our NEPA review. We have completed that with another categorical exclusion for the maintenance facility and the fueling infrastructure. So how we got here, and all this is listed in the memo, is in 2018, we did a report with WSP, who was our prior A&E services vendor, titled Facility Assessment for Alternative Fuel Vehicles. That included CNG and electrical vehicles. The recommendations that came out of that report were a methane gas detection system, continuous ventilation, and extending a block wall to the roof deck of the maintenance facility to make sure that gases that did leak out did not move about the facility in a harmful way. WSP was able to complete schematic design and do some specifications for that work. And then it was kind of put on the shelf for a little bit. We transitioned from WSP to Kersey & Kersey for A&E services. As we went to put this grant together, we brought that plan back out, put those recommendations into the proposal, named Kersey & Kersey as a project partner. We were awarded the money, and so here we are to try to move forward on a task order to complete the design and construction documents review. We need to go back to make sure that no building codes or anything like that has changed over the past few years. And Kersey & Kersey would also lead our construction bidding and construction administration part of the work. You'll notice that the cost of this engagement is $49,955.10. That is less than the threshold where the general manager could issue the task order on her own. However, we thought there's another resolution that goes along with this project. It's very close to $50,000, and with the general manager transition, we would go ahead and put it in front of the board anyway. So this does not include the actual construction of the maintenance facility. This is for the design work, the bidding, and the administration of the construction of the facility. Do I have any questions about this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, George. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the second part of the project is the fueling infrastructure. So out of the same grant, Zod Energy was named as a project partner for design build services to complete our fueling upgrades. This includes 2 compressors, a dryer, a dispenser, a valve panel, and other infrastructure that's needed This is going to effectively double the fuel capacity that we have for CNG vehicles. That's very important as we increase the number of CNG vehicles in our fleet. Zod Energy also contributed to the construction of the facility as it is, and they also have our contract for CNG maintenance and monitoring services. The award here is $1,678,876. It is again funded through the Low-No grant and the match with local transit bonds. Any questions about this piece of the project?
How much is our match?
The buses received state grant money, so it would be 20% of this 1.6.
335,000.
And I know we haven't gotten an update in a while in the canopy project, but this is coordinated with the canopy project.
We will coordinate to the best of our ability. Now, whether or not the timelines of both match up remains to be seen. But we don't want to have as minimal impact on our parking lot operations as we can have as we start to dig things up and place conduit and all sorts of things.
Motion to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask that we make a slight amendment to the agenda today because I know we have some members who are on a limited time schedule. And today we do have a need for a closed session to discuss a contractual issue. And Mr. Motley, if you would please read the motion.
Yes, at this time, I move that Lextran Board go into closed session pursuant to KRS 61.810, Section G, for discussion regarding the provision of van pool services due to a specific proposal for van pool services.
Okay. Is there a second to Mr. Motley's motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 We'll pause until Alan gives us the
because enterprise
good to go.
Okay. All right, we will return to our primary session. No action was taken in closed session. We do have a motion from Mr. Motley.
I move that the Board of Directors waive the 48-hour rule contained in the bylaws of the Board of Directors, Article 4, Section 4, and pursuant to KRS 96A.060, Section 1, requiring agenda items and resolutions to be acted upon by the board and be provided to all members at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting for the purpose of discussions of emergency action required for certain contracts.
Thank you. Is there a second to Mr. Motley's motion?
A second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Excellent. So what Mr. Motley's resolution allows us to do is to what we call walk on a resolution, which we need to do in a timely fashion in the interest of our riders and Lextran's serviceability. So I'd like to introduce two resolutions. The first is Resolution 2023-15, which rescinds Resolution 2023-04. Resolution 2023-04 approved Lextran to enter into a contract with EAN Holdings, LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise, which is the operator of our Vanpool services. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2023-15?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Schoninger. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Motley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next resolution, 2023-16, I'm going to read in its full text for clarity. Whereas Resolution 2023-04 was approved by the Board of Directors on March 22nd, 2023, and whereas the proposal submitted by EAN Holdings, LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise, was accepted on February 22nd, 2023, and whereas the parties were unable to negotiate a final contract, and whereas there were no other firms that proposed on Vanpool services, and whereas Resolution 2023-15 was approved by the Board of Directors on August 23rd, 2023, and whereas 60-day notice to Enterprise on August 23rd of rescission of Resolution 2023-04, and whereas Lextran agrees to continue to provide the Vanpool subsidy for current subscribers through October 31st, 2023 pursuant to the 60-day notice, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Lextran of the Transit Authority of Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, otherwise known as Lextran, hereby cancels its Vanpool program. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very, very much. So then, moving back in our agenda, I appreciate everybody's additional time on that. I did not see a change order report in the agenda, correct?
No,
No
we don't.
change order report. Any old business?
No,
Any new business?
no.
Okay. Proposed agenda items for coming months?
Okay, Nikki is gonna present us with a brief highlight on each of these items. So she's,
Thank you, Nikki.
We have a resolution for the Kentucky Deferred Comp. That is ready to go. We're just waiting on general manager to be named because I have to be named in that resolution. We're still waiting on FTA for the drug and alcohol policy update, so if we hear anything, we will bring that one. We have two procurements going on right now. We'll have the hybrid battery replacement and electrician services.
Okay. And are those are ongoing RFPs, so do we expect a resolution on those in the next month, 2 months?
Yes, we're expecting those two to be in September.
Great. Okay. Excellent. If there is no other business, then we stand adjourned. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.